Good morning and welcome. My name is Olas Karianis, and I'm the field education student here at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. As always, a big thank you to the entire team that helps bring us Sunday services each week. Every week, we open with words of welcome and announcement. All across the country right now, Unitarian Universalist societies are all welcoming folks into their digital sanctuaries, and they are speaking words of welcome to longtime members and to strangers who just walked in the door or logged on to Zoom, curious about those Unitarians. Strangers that hopefully will become friends. Indeed, my first time at a UU church, I nervously entered, expecting at any second to be evangelized to. I was alert for any mention of how or what I should believe. I was ready to feel unwelcome. And yet, in these words spoken at the beginning of the gathering, the minister simply told me that I was welcome there, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, age, education, history, race, ethnicity, economic status, physical or mental health, theology, or the shape of my body. I was welcome. And more than welcome, I was embraced and loved. I had a home there waiting for me. The minister affirmed the congregation's commitment to free thinking and liberal religion. As time went on, I heard the words every week about inclusive, non-creedal religion, and I stopped thinking about it. These were just the words that we say at the beginning of service before we get to the singing and the meditating. They may seem so familiar to me now, but they are the first words spoken at our Sunday services that tell the world who we are, that remind us who we are, and that show a newcomer that indeed, yes, they are welcome and loved and embraced right here in this community. During this morning's service, we are going to slow ourselves down. We are going to think about the value of each segment and how it affects us. We are going to remember what it felt like to hear the words for the first time. The welcome and announcements is the place that we all remind ourselves of our commitment to liberal faith, to inclusion, and to showing up to the broader community. Welcome and announcements remind us that on any given Sunday, we are the first impression of a visitor to our faith. The welcome and announcements offer us the opportunity to consistently and succinctly describe our faith to each other and to the world every Sunday. And they help us build community through the sharing of vital information about what we are doing, both inside our community and beyond it. This morning, we are so pleased to extend an extra welcome to the members of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Stamford, Connecticut, who are joining us. Please offer a warm welcome in the chat to our friends from Stamford. Please note that next week, directly after service, a digital birthday celebration will be held in this room for Nancy Petrie, who is celebrating her 103rd birthday. We hope you'll join us for music, stories, and more. We continue to collect menstrual products on Reeb Porch, so keep it coming. As we approach the end of our 4th year together with Reverend Sarah, we are, in accordance with her letter of call, undergoing a review process. You will soon receive an email inviting you to fill out a survey that assesses the ministry that Reverend Sarah is doing for and with us. Please take the time to help out the Committee on Shared Ministry by filling out those questions. We are so happy that you have joined us this morning.
Good morning. In Plum Village practice centers worldwide, the followers of Thich Nhat Hanh chant the great bell chant every single day. The deep resonance of the bell does more than center the heart and mind. It can touch and heal the soul. Like a positive trigger, a centering sound can condition us to calm our mind, relax our body. Even if we don't have a Tibetan singing bowl or a deep-throated gong, we can treat the notification sounds on our cell phone or literally any stimulus as a call to mindfulness. Whenever we hear it, we can stop, come back to our true self, and generate compassion for all living beings. We respond with an intention to send our peaceful energy along with the sound of the bell, and wish that everyone who hears it may hear it clearly, so that all suffering in them may cease. As I hear the centering sound each week, I listen with the intentions of the great bell chant in my heart. Let this mindfulness poem speak to your soul. May the sound of the bell penetrate deep into the cosmos. Even in the darkest spots, living beings are able to hear it clearly, so that all sufferings in them cease. Understanding comes to their hearts, and they transcend the path of sorrow and death. The universal Dharma door is already open. The sound of the rising tide is heard clearly. A miracle happens. A beautiful child appears in the heart of a lotus flower. One single drop of this compassionate water is enough to bring back the refreshing spring to our mountains and rivers. Listening to the bell, I feel the afflictions in me begin to dissolve. My mind calm, my body relaxed, a smile is born on my lips. Following the sound of the bell, my breath brings me back to the safe island of mindfulness. In the garden of my heart, the flowers of peace bloom beautifully.
Good morning. Perhaps this morning, as we reflect on the meanings in the elements of our worship, imagine how they would come across to children. It seems 3 children were talking about their religions. "I'm a Christian," said one, "and our symbol is the cross." "I'm Jewish," said the second, "and our symbol is the Star of David." The third child said, "I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and our symbol is a candle in a cocktail glass." Each Sunday, we join together to speak our chalice lighting words. As with all things, it can be easy to allow these to become rote, a sort of familiar chant, the deep meaning of which we stop considering. But there is meaning in the words, and meaning too in the symbol of the chalice. Although the flaming chalice only came to prominence as a symbol of our shared Unitarian Universalism in the 1980s, it came into existence during World War II. The artist Hans Deutsch created the symbol, an image of a flame within a cupping vessel, to identify documents of the Unitarian Service Committee. The Unitarian Service Committee was helping to get Jewish refugees out of danger in the lead up to the war. The stamped image of a simple chalice used to identify a resistance group turned into the more complex 2-circle chalices we see today, the 2 circles representing Unitarianism and Universalism. But how this image became an object for use in Sunday services is somewhat ambiguous. In a piece describing the history of the chalice, now president of the UUA, the Reverend Dr. Susan Ritchie wrote, "All evidence suggests that the path leads through our children's religious education programs. Curricula used in the late 70s stressed the meaning of the chalice and encouraged the children to make chalices in different media. Eventually, those chalices morphed into objects that could be lit. And the first documented uses of chalices in the main sanctuary are from Sundays on which the children and youth led worship and demonstrated their practice to the adult congregation. How wonderful that a children's churchcraft captured the imagination of an entire denomination. I love this. The idea that the chalice grew from an official marker of a group committed to rescuing as many lives as possible into the symbol of our hope for a shared future, into a ritual object brought to us by the children of our faith who found in the chalice and its history something solid, something real, something worth lifting up. For many of us, when we speak now of the chalice, we may not say that it symbolizes resistance and a dedication to life. Instead, perhaps, we highlight how it reminds us that each and every one of us possesses a unique and holy flame. That when we come together in community, our flames burn brighter. That even in the cloudiest moments, light shines through. That hope can be kindled anew each and every day. And that openness to the future is foundational to who we are. Remembering that this ritual object carries so many meanings, ones we share and ones that are individual to us, we light our chalice with the words we use each and every Sunday. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action as we gather together in the circle of community.
On this day, 500 years ago, Martin Luther, the famous theologian who is often attributed with starting the Protestant Reformation, was on trial at the Diet of Worms. 500 years ago, standing trial as a heretic, Luther proclaimed his now famous words, "I cannot and will not recant anything, since it is neither safe nor right to go against conscience. Here I stand. I can do no other." We don't often quote Luther. Actually, we protested even against his particular brand of Christianity. But Luther's words do remind us of the power of conviction, which is and has always been a particularly powerful principle that UUs hold. It's a good reminder to us that words matter. What we say affects the world. Our words inform our practices reinforce our convictions, and in some ways, ultimately, our words define our lives. Luther's stand a half a millennia ago rested on the utterance of words which channeled the power of his convictions. Luther's words, in a chorus with many others, changed the course of history, created new ways of relating not only to religion and the church, but to each other in community. They also laid the bedrock for political shifts. From the Reformation, we see the return of democratic ideals, a move toward the belief that people should have access to the words and concepts of their religion in their own language, the development of the idea that each individual can interpret and learn for themselves without the magical mediation of clergy. In some ways, the foundation that Luther poured gave rise to notion of equal access not only to religious texts, but also to public spaces, to government, to their own voice. As you may know, Luther did not intend for his words to become the reality that we live with 500 years later, but our words often get away from us. And today we are reflecting on the words we say and listen to when we come together, like on this Sunday morning, whether in person or over Zoom. This part of the service, the opening words, sets the scene, so to speak. Sometimes the opening words thematically describe what the service is all about, as with our recent Passover service when we use the opening words to tell the story of Exodus. And sometimes they are poetry that reminds us of our most deeply held shared values, or perhaps a lyrically written reflection adjacent to the theme of the service. Often the opening words are my favorite part of the service, especially those lyrically adjacent ones. This section of our service offers a place to lightly touch upon a topic, to inspire the imagination, and to let the overarching and overflowing interconnected concepts relate to the topic flit ephemerally across our minds as we move from these words to the next element. The opening words are never the epic history-making pronouncements of conviction. That's better left for the sermon or for the benediction. Opening words are the staging. They are the lighting, ever important to the show, but never the main focus. They are the introduction, the soft, sometimes tentative beginning of the conversation we will have together. The centering sound and the chalice lighting bring us here together, but it is the opening words that bring us together in thought. It is the opening words that help us bring our attention to what we will turn over and over again in our minds on any given Sunday. Words matter. They can help us be clear and concise. They can help us bring images to mind. They can help us offer to each other the poetry of compassion and grace. They help us to attempt to express the ineffable in our own experience and the transcendent that moves beyond us. They can bring pain or love, stagnancy or transformation. As we gather this morning, in consideration of the value of this time we share, we are mindful of the power of our words and how they can help us begin.
I'm musician first class Madeline Crossland with the United States Navy Band. While many of us are feeling isolated during these uncertain times, it is important to remember that we are all in this together. Please enjoy this musical tribute to the power of one voice. This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This
leave the rest behind and we'll turn to love. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
Good morning. My name is Robert Markowitz, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Every Sunday, a member of the board sits here and asks for your financial contribution. We talk about how a part of laying the groundwork for the future of our congregation is making our weekly offering that helps to sustain the work of this community. We make this ask because our Unitarian Universalist congregations are self-sustaining. We have a thing called congregation polity. It means that we govern ourselves with no hierarchical body telling us what to do, and no larger body gives us money. We fund ourselves through our donations and rentals and whatever other means we devise. These independence is a hallmark of our UU congregations, but it is more than independence. It is independence across time. Generation after generation, folks have committed themselves, their time, their talents, their money, to ensure that those who come after will have a community of welcome and love that is focused on justice and the transformation of the world. Each generation benefits from those that came before, and each generation builds from those who are yet to come. There is another element to the offering ask, of course, and that is the cultivation of the virtue of generosities. We live in a culture that often encourages us to take rather than give, to imagine scarcity rather than abundance. The practice of making even a small offering on Sunday morning is exactly that, practice in abundance and generosity, both values that we believe in. This community exists because of you. And because of this community, you will be changed and transformed. Every element of the Sunday service, even the offering, contributes to this mutual exchange of care and growth. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
So I didn't introduce myself a moment ago, but I'm Jack Lohr, and for many years I was a Presbyterian minister. A lot of Christians say they believe something about the Bible, but in my experience, many of them are biblically illiterate, or at best, they are highly selective in the verses they pay attention to. We Unitarian Universalists claim to be inspired by something much, much vaster than just the Bible. We call it the 6 sources. They include personal spiritual experience, words and deeds of prophets, wisdom from the world's religions, Jewish and Christian teachings, humanist teachings, and earth-centered traditions. In my journey as a Methodist, a Quaker, a Presbyterian, a Buddhist, and now a Unitarian Universalist, I've had an ecumenical spirit in the broadest sense of that word, ecumenical. It is, just getting ready to share something here. Pardon me for a second. Yes, there we go. For me, ecumenical includes all of the scriptures, all of the wisdom that humanity has discovered and expressed. And so I was deeply impressed by the vision of the Reverend Kenneth L. Patton, who served for a long time as minister at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. If you have ever seen a picture of the Charles Street Meeting House in Boston, where he served as minister before joining us, you'll see a large bookshelf between the lectern and the backdrop of the painting he did with help from his congregation of the Andromeda Nebula. Each week, Patton would take a book from that bookshelf, which included, as he saw it, the sacred texts of all the world's religions, and he would share its wisdom. We Unitarians respect so much more than the Bible, but that means that we are in danger of choosing a tiny subset of our preferred choices. I'd like you to consider a group called the Ontario Consultants for Religious Tolerance. This can be an important resource for affirming and promoting the sources of our living tradition. OCRT tries to present respectfully the very wisdom and teachings we claim as our sources. I have been using their website for many years as a guide to the world's religion. There's a link to their website in the chat. I am sorry to say they have monetized their page with a lot of ads now, but it's still very much worth a visit. Of course, the first source for us is our own spiritual experience. Nothing can replace or supersede that. But OCRT can help us journey farther into the other sources. Here are some selections from their statement of belief, which guides their work. And this may, for us, be something of an inspiration, or at least a reason to go and check their website. This is what they say. We are a multi-faith group. Our staff consists of one atheist, agnostic, Christian, Wiccan, and Zen Buddhist. Thus, we lack agreement on almost all theological matters, such as belief in a supreme being, the nature of God, interpretation of the Bible and other holy texts, whether life after death exists, etc. We believe in personal worth, the inherent worth of every person. People are worthy of respect, support, and caring simply because they are human. Our group has not reached a consensus on when human life becomes a human person with civil rights, including the right to live. On this matter, our group's lack of agreement mirrors that of society at large. Lack of discrimination. Working towards a culture that is relatively free of discrimination on the basis of gender, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, national origin, physical disability, language, age, body shape, etc. Freedom of speech. The freedom to compare the beliefs of faith groups with each other and with the findings of science. It also includes the freedom to criticize faith and other groups when they harm others. Relative truth. The principle that many moral, ethical, and religious beliefs vary greatly from one culture, religion, and time to another, and are thus relative. We do acknowledge that they are often considered absolute by various religions and secular belief systems. Impact of religion. The generally positive influence that most religions have had on their followers and on society. A problem with the use of prayer. It is our belief that prayer is an unreliable method to assess the will of God. Evil in religion. In the importance of individual believers detecting evil influences and policies that currently exist within their chosen faith group, and strongly advocating for their correction. If significant improvement or elimination of sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, etc., is impossible, we feel that they should consider withholding financial support and or leaving the group. And finally, education. The principle that people are not truly educated unless they have studied the world's major religions and ethical systems. They need to learn of both the good and evil impacts that each has had on society throughout history. Young people need to be taught skills at analysis and baloney detection as an integral part of their education.
We draw from our sources every Sunday, offering readings that speak to our values, that bring us into images, into new ideas, into deeper thought. These readings give shape and form, substance to our services. They teach us and broaden our cultural understanding. And each Sunday, we make a special kind of time inside this special time. Our meditation time, our prayer time, our reflection time. Of all the elements on Sunday morning, it is the one that I explain most often. You've heard me. Each Sunday, we take time to sit in the quiet together, to witness, even silently, to each other's and the world's pains and joys, because we know that it is in this witness that our lives are enriched and our community is built. But there's more to it. Once upon a time, one of you came to me and said, I realized that all that breathing we do on Sundays, the centering sound and in the meditation, it's sunk in. I find myself at work taking deep breaths. It helps me stay present. This particular bit of time we take each Sunday that you use in the ways most meaningful for you, in deep meditation focused on the breath moving in and out of your body, in reciting prayers from your childhood that you still hold dear, in thoughtful contemplation of a spot on the wall. This time we take is practice. Practice sitting still in a busy world. Practice breathing slowly and deeply, and so often we hurry through our lives. It's practice being quiet, holding others in compassion, and offering ourselves forgiveness for our growing edges. And there is another part. Throughout the week, many of us consume a lot of news, and we respond to it frequently with anger or fear or frustration. Often in those moments of reading the paper or hearing our favorite news person explain the latest horror or checking the internet obsessively, often we do not respond with the deepest parts of our hearts, with our tears and with our empathy. This time that we share together, when we remind each other of the state of the world, offers us a safe space to engage the world fully with our whole selves, digging deeper past the anger and into the very real sorrow. This is time in which we can safely allow our hearts to break again. And this is time that always offers us a reminder that change and healing are possible. This is a time for witness, for practice, for heartbreak, and for hope. It's a time for meditation and reflection and contemplation and prayer. And I invite you now into this time. Find as comfortable a position for your body as you can. Close your eyes if that feels safe. And take a deep breath. Inhaling slowly through your nose. Release that breath slowly through your mouth. Try for even breathing, deep and slow. Keep your mind focused on the air that moves in and out of your body. And if your mind wanders, don't worry. Just bring yourself back gently, focusing on the words you hear, on the breath as it comes in and out. As we sit and breathe together in physically distant but spiritually close, companionable silence, we remember that in each of our lives there is present pain and celebration. To those among us living with worry, with grief, with sorrow, we offer compassion, empathy, and love. With those among us joyful and happy this morning, we rejoice and celebrate, sharing in the good that fills you. Here in this community, each and every moment there is life, with all its strange and challenging combinations of feeling. Here in this community, each and every moment there is love, offered and received, binding us together. As we sit and breathe together in the shared quiet, we remember that out in the world beyond our walls, there is joy. Families welcome new life. Loved ones recover from illness. New opportunities arise. And also out in the wide world, there is so much pain. This morning, we let our hearts break once more as we speak the names of yet more Black and Latino men and children whose lives have been stolen, whose families have been forever changed. This morning, our hearts break for Dante Wright, killed after being pulled over for an expired registration. Our hearts break for his loved ones, for his child. This morning, our hearts break for Adam Toledo, a 13-year-old child killed while trying to comply with an officer's direction. Our hearts break for his friends, his family. These are not simply news stories. legal what ifs to be debated and argued and dismissed. These were human lives cut short, and the pain of that cuts deeply. Here, as we breathe in this time together, we let our hearts break. We let our tears come as we weep for the grief in our world. Breathe. Breathe. In the symbols of our shared faith that speak to resistance and revolution, there is hope. In the words we speak that remind us of our deepest values and our highest visions, there is hope. In the words of others that unlock in us a sense of wonder and a deep knowledge of beauty, there is hope. In the deep breaths we take to center ourselves, to recommit ourselves, there is hope. And in the time we spend together, in quiet and yes, in heartbreak and yes, in hope, there is love. May our empathy bring tears and wailing. But may our compassion make us strong and courageous. May our love give us hope. And with these, may we transform the world. So may it be.
Good morning. Worship and music have been intertwined since the inception of humanity. Who's to even say which came first? As outgrowths of a self-aware animal, both seek to address questions of the meaning of life, our position in the universe, and attempt to comfort existential angst engendered by knowing our own mortality. Darwin postulates that most of our characteristics and activities are the inevitable consequence of evolving and adapting. Why art, then? The arts reflect back and celebrate the common heritage of our bodies and our environment. Dance, our ability to move rhythmically through space. Painting, our ability to perceive shape and color. Music, a response to the primordial rhythm of the heart and the pleasing sounds of our environment. And all of the manifestations of these various art forms to which we respond naturally and intuitively give us meaning, a sense of something higher, as well as a feeling of comfort, connectedness, and well-being. Additionally, innumerable cultures have offered up gifts to their gods in the form of food, sacrifices, gold, and other valued items. So it's not surprising that music is included in those offerings.
Deep tones, y'all. Deep. played by the great Sun Ra. This incredible instrument was played by Sun Ra himself on the 1965 album Heliocentric Worlds. You just kiss her and she speaks. Just kiss her and she speaks. You don't have to whack the thing. Whack the thing, just kiss her and she speaks.
Eight years ago, minus 3 days, I was ordained to the Unitarian Universalist ministry. My family, some friends, some colleagues, some congregants, and some mentors gathered at the First Unitarian Church in Philadelphia, and the ritual of ordination occurred. For an ordination to happen, a congregation has to determine for itself that an individual is fit to serve our movement and our people, fit in terms of preparation and in terms of temperament. Sometimes our congregations get it wrong and ordination doesn't stick, but often they get it right. The ritual itself is not dissimilar to our Sunday services. There's music and there are readings, prayer and commitments are made, and there's a sermon, that 17 to 20 minute thing I and other ministers do on Sundays. This morning's is shorter. That long conversation that draws on our experience, on the sources we commit ourselves to knowing, and on our powers of analysis and persuasion. The sermon so often is that culminating moment, one that brings together all the elements that have come before, excavating from the poetry and prose and silence some meaning and message that will help us all to live more fully in our lives. My ordination sermon was preached by the Reverend Galen Gingrich. Galen had come sometime during my childhood to be a minister at All Souls Unitarian Church in New York City, where I grew up. So I had known him in some capacity since I was pretty young. And since I had entered into ministerial discernment, he had been a mentor of sorts. In that ordination sermon, he spoke about his understanding of this work of ministry. We ministers have 4 roles, he said: preacher, pastor, prophet, and priest. The work of the minister as priest is the work of ritual. We Unitarian Universalists don't go in overly much for ritual, but we do, as all people do, understand that marking the passage of time and the important moments of a life matters. The minister as priest welcomes new life into the world by dedicating babies, solemnizes marriages, and facilitates the promises that new couples make to each other and to the world. Remembers and cries and celebrates with those who are left behind after a death. The minister priest devises rituals to mark moving into a new home, beginning a new job, ending a marriage, and so much more. The work of the priest is to formalize the meaning making that is the work at the heart of religious community and experience. The work of the minister as pastor is the work of empathy. Always mindful of where our expertise in care ends and where the work of trained psychological professionals begins, the minister as pastor listens, asks questions, offers a friendly and non-judgmental ear as you work out your beliefs about the world, as you share the pain of your losses, as you worry about the future, or realize who you are deep in your heart. The minister as pastor consults, gently pushes, holds, and bears witness. The minister as pastor holds your new babies, showers them with welcoming love, holds your hand as you pass out of this life, and holds your loved ones as they grieve. The work of the pastor is to provide safe space for you to share your life so that religious community can be built through vulnerability and care. The work of the minister as prophet is the work of justice, of speaking truth to power, of crying out in the night that there is a better way. The minister as prophet doesn't let you put your head in the sand, asks you to confront the injustice of the world, the apathy in yourself, the privilege or fear or inertia that keeps you from transforming this world. The minister as prophet tells you hard things, asks you for hard commitments, pushes the community to look beyond itself. The minister prophet speaks the names of those who have been slaughtered in the streets. The minister prophet marches, writes letters to the editor, cries with you, and questions everything. The work of the prophet is to create in the community a drive to change what is for the better, and to hold the community accountable for the vision of such change. The work of the minister as preacher is to spread the good word of life, of Unitarian Universalism, of hope, of love. The work of the minister preacher is to bring new teachings, old wisdom, gathered from all the sources around the wide and diverse world, and to think through them with you, lifting up what is eternal, what is beautiful, what is true, what is real. The minister as preacher carries on a conversation with the community, Sunday to Sunday, that helps to deepen our collective understanding, our shared commitment, and our individual lives, assisting us in living our values more honestly and in becoming ourselves more fully. The work of the preacher is to lead the engagement in that never-ending discussion of what matters most, what means the most in these 2 short lives of ours. That's what Galen preached at my ordination sermon, or at least that's what I remember that he preached. It's what I took away from what he said. priest, pastor, prophet, preacher. We were reminded earlier that 500 years ago, Martin Luther stood on his convictions and refused to recant. 4 years earlier, he had nailed his 95 Theses to the doors of churches in Wittenberg and had begun a chain of events that would alter the world forever. While our Unitarian Universalist forebears were certainly not Lutheran, they were, and we are, inheritors of the revolution, the Reformation that Martin Luther reluctantly, really unwittingly, began half a millennium ago. And part of what that revolution did was to bring out a belief in the priesthood of all believers. That's the phrase we hear. Galen preached at my ordination about what a minister's work is. And I have come to understand in these past 8 years of parish ministry that this is also the work of the people. You come, you bear witness, you make yourselves present to each other, participating in the rituals of meaning making, being priests for each other. You hold each other's hands, you care for each other, you listen and you empathize, being pastors for each other. You rail and you weep and you march and you advocate and fundraise and donate and face the hard truths and try and change the world, being prophets alongside each other. You participate every Sunday, every day, in the ongoing conversation, the investigation and discussion about what matters in order to deepen all our lives, being preachers to each other. Though the attribution is likely faulty, many will quote that line about the priesthood of all believers as Luther's. Whether or not he said such a thing, the spirit of his unintentional movement was indeed one of all believers. And that's what we inherit, in part, from those long ago Protestants, a belief that each and every one of us is capable of making meaning, being present, bearing holy witness, speaking with authority from our own experience, accessing the divine and building community. My friend and colleague, the Reverend Cecilia Kingman, reminded me that the root word for liturgy actually means the people's work, though we use it often to mean the work of ritual and religious ceremony. And the word worship, she writes, has one root definition that means to consider worth or to consider what is worthy. So this thing we do on Sunday mornings and sometimes on a weeknight, whether we call it a service or worship, it is collective work. The music, the sermon, the meditation, all of it is not a performance to be consumed. It is work to be participated in. It is a consideration that we all do together. It is an act of countercultural resistance that asks us to look past what the world teaches us to focus on, appearance, wealth, productivity, and to slow down, be together, ask questions and speak answers we aren't sure of yet, just to see how they feel on our tongues. It's an act of countercultural resistance that asks us to stop being so strong and impenetrable and angry, and instead to feel, to weep, to let our hearts break, and to still show up again with our hearts open and ready to be broken. It's an act of countercultural resistance that asks us to build communities across difference, to open our minds, to offer forgiveness, and to offer love. And this thing we do, it's training, because our consideration of that which is of the most worth asks a lot of us, and we often come up short. Sometimes we come together and we just can't slow down our minds for the meditation. Sometimes we come and we cannot bear to open our hearts to the message of the sermon. Sometimes we come with our defenses up and our critical eye outweighing our open hearts. Sometimes we come primed to be disappointed because the service isn't what we would have said about a topic, or because something was said that doesn't suit our personal theology or viewpoint. The training, the practice, the growth and openness and commitment comes in when we show up again the next week. Even if we found something in the service off-putting, even if not every element spoke to us, even if we weren't able to open ourselves one day, we come back again and again, practicing what it means to be a priest, a pastor, a prophet, and a preacher. We come back again, practicing meditation and reflection and breathing, empathy and compassion and caring, conversation and questions and discussion. We come back again and again, practicing love. And this is why we worship. This is why we come here together, Sunday after Sunday. For the music, yes. For the poetry, yes. For the stories, yes. For the sermons, yes. For the company and coffee hour, yes. But at the end of the day, we come for the deeper sense of community, for the chance to learn who we are and practice being our best selves, for the chance to see others and to be seen, to hold others and to be held, to love others and to be loved. We Unitarian Universalists don't generally come for God. We don't come for a chance at heaven. We don't come to avoid hell. We come to know the divine in others, to experience the transcendence of moving outside ourselves in generosity and care. We come to bolster each other in transforming the world and creating heaven right here, right now. We come because this life can be hell, and the pain of living is eased when we go somewhere that names the harshness and still offers us a reminder of all that is beautiful and wondrous and good. Our services use all the tools at our disposal, and each service can look different. More stories or more music, a longer sermon or a shorter homily, ritual activity and engagement with each other, more quiet or less quiet. But each and every service has the same aim at its heart: to build community, to help us know ourselves, and to deepen and grow, to do our shared work and to make meaning of this time we are given. Some services will be more successful for you than others will, certainly. But the work of our shared dialogue is ongoing. Each time we come together to pause and reflect and make sense of the world we live in, to find what is worthy in our lives and commit ourselves to pursuing it. Each time we come together to grow and work for justice and to change ourselves. Each time we do this, we're reminded that we're not alone. Why do we worship? We worship to be reminded and renewed in the knowledge that though our lives are our own, we belong to each other, and we are part of something larger, something that calls us to empathy, to growth, to justice, and to love.
In her important and insightful book, The Power of Music, Elena Manis makes a strong case for what she terms musical entrainment. Since the cognition and appreciation of music seems to be virtually universal, Eskimos, New Yorkers, and Africans all smile with pleasure when a major triad is played. She theorizes that music, and indeed all of the arts, serves as a So come and train with us as we sing this morning's hymn, Love Will Guide Us, number 131. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night
part of the ritual of our chalice, we extinguish it when our service is done. Blowing out the light symbolizes that this particular time we share together has ended, but the words we speak affirm that the flame does not go out. These words remind us each Sunday, though perhaps we forget, what the Sunday service does, what worship does. It strengthens us for the week ahead. This morning, as we close our service, speak these words and really consider what they mean, what they say about this time we have spent together and about what we collectively hope for the time we spend apart. Join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice. They are on your screen. We extinguish the flame, but may the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action burn bright in our hearts until we are together again. A benediction is understood to be a blessing, usually of parting, at the end of a religious service. The roots of this term are bene, meaning well or good, and dicere, meaning to say. Good words, a speech of well-wishing, a final moment for me to offer to you a hope for the week ahead. Often a hope for strength and commitment, for joy and laughter, for peace and love. And implicitly, always, a reminder that you are not alone, that with you out into the world goes this community and its love. May tears and laughter both abound. May peace and love mark your days. And may you know now and always that you are not alone. So may it be.